Hello, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer at Functional Aesthetics CC. We're helping average guys perform better in their lives inside and outside the gym. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to avoid weight regain following the diet. As you may be aware, 80% of people who go on a diet regain the weight and then some after they get off the diet. So perhaps more importantly than losing the weight is also having a plan for how are you going to sustain that once you get done with your diet. So while in theory, you should be able to do what they call a reverse diet, where you gradually increase the amount of calories that you're eating, say for example 250 to 500 calories per day, maybe even less, depending on how lean you're trying to stay, until you again return to a maintenance level. That is a lot easier said than done for anybody who's actually tried to do that. And there's a couple of factors that contribute to that. For one, your hunger hormone, ghrelin, is going to be increased. So you're going to be feeling like your body wants to get back to that homeostasis level, right? It does not want to be in the starvation state forever, and so those levels of hunger are going to just progressively increase. So when you come off the diet, it's going to be hard to not just go and binge on everything in sight, right? It's hard to have a more gradual approach to that. Secondly, over a prolonged period of dieting, your metabolism can decrease, and the longer you've been dieting, the longer it will take for you to get back to a normal level. And if you lost any muscle during the process, hopefully you haven't, but then that can also decrease your metabolism as well. So while you're in this dieting state, over time, the fat cells as well as insulin receptors become very sensitive, so that anything that is floating around in the bloodstream is going to get mopped up right away. And so this can cause to have lower levels of energy or calories in your bloodstream, creating the effect or the illusion that your body does not have enough calories coming in. And so even though you're soaking up everything into the fat cells, the body sees it as you don't have enough energy coming in. And so again, causes you to store more in the fat cells, increase that hunger level over time. Another thing that is very common when you're coming off of a diet, and particularly if you're in a low carbohydrate diet, is that as you begin to increase the carbohydrates in your diet, you will also tend to increase the insulin level in your diet, right? And so all of a sudden this hunger that you had kept at bay by keeping your blood sugar balanced is going to come back with a vengeance, and you may not actually be able to overcome that if you increase your carbohydrates too high. So, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the next point, but what you want to do is you want to still continue sticking to those foods that you were eating during the diet, maybe gradually increasing the amount that you're eating and slowly moving from foods with a lower glycemic index and glycemic load. So glycemic index is the level at which it raises insulin. Glycemic load is the total amount of sugar and calories in that particular food, right? And so you want to pay attention to that. So say for example, if you're eating beans and sweet potatoes, which have very low glycemic index, low glycemic load, but previous to the diet, say for example when you're trying to build more muscle, when you're focused more on athletic performance, you're eating more things like rice and potatoes and oatmeal and things like that have a higher glycemic load, and fruits, right? Then you want to gradually start moving more in that direction. Instead of, what is also very common for people to do, they feel that, they deserve to go out and have this cheat day because they've dieted so hard, they've achieved their goal, and now I deserve to have a donut, or I deserve to go out and have that pizza or that piece of cake or whatever it is. And what happens though is that those foods increase your insulin levels as well as increasing your adrenaline levels. And increased adrenaline is also associated with a starvation state or a fasted state, right? So this is why actually when you are doing fasting for a prolonged period of time, that your adrenaline and your cortisol tend to go up while you're doing that. And so this triggers the body to think, hey, we're in a starvation state. And so But you're not, because you just ate all this high calorie, high sugar food, but it increased the adrenaline levels, meaning that now you are going to crave more food, and this is irregardless of the insulin spike that follows. So you not only do you have this insulin spike followed by the crash, which makes you want to eat more food, but you also have the increased adrenaline, which causes your body to think that you're in a starvation state, even though you're not. Another reason that you want to be disciplined about the way that you approach coming off your diet is because if you don't, you could cause a lot of digestive upset. So your body hasn't been used to processing a lot of food for a while, and so if you all of a sudden binge on something, you can get constipation, bloating, water retention, low energy. You can even have diarrhea, alternating with the constipation, and decreased motivation just from the lethargy caused by too much influx of calories. So for example, you have some people, and granted this is in very extreme situations, but in third world countries where they have the kids and they've been not getting enough food for months and months and months, right? And then all of a sudden, the people come in to provide them with more food, and they give them a peanut butter sandwich or something, and that amount of protein and fat was just too hard for them to digest. It's the same thing with your body. Maybe these things were okay before the diet, but then after you diet, you want to gradually reintroduce things so that, and monitor how your body responds to it, so that not only are you not gaining all the fat back, but you're also allowing your body to adjust to this increased level of calorie concentration over time. So to illustrate this point even further, there was a study that they did where they split up the participants into 3 different groups. So they had ranging from the lowest glycemic index and the lowest glycemic load for the one group, and then a moderate and then a high glycemic load in the third group. And what they found was that the people not surprisingly, in that highest glycemic group, they had the highest increase in insulin, the highest increase in blood sugar, and then also the crash following that. And all the participants were given unlimited access to food, so they could eat whatever they wanted, as much as they wanted after this initial meal. And what they found was that the participants in the high glycemic group ate on average 600 to 700 more calories in the meal following the initial meal, simply because of that increase in blood sugar and insulin. And this is why, actually, for guys who are trying to bulk up, if you're a skinny guy and you're trying to gain more muscle, and you just don't have as big of an appetite, oftentimes it's because of the foods that you're eating, right? And so either you're not eating enough protein or you're eating too much protein. And so sometimes what you can do is actually decrease the fat content of the meal a little bit and double up on your carbs portions. So say, for example, you're eating 30 grams of protein at a meal, 30 or 40, right? And maybe you would typically have, 25 to 40 grams of carbohydrates at that meal, right? Well, what if you double that? And so you have 80 to 100 grams of carbs at that meal, keeping the protein the same, slightly drop the fat down so that it doesn't, impair that insulin spike. And this will allow you to then have that drop in blood sugar later on, which will cause you to feel more hungry later on, which will cause you then to be able to eat more food later on. In another study, they found that not only did insulin increase, but glucagon decreased. So glucagon is does the opposite thing as insulin. So glucagon actually takes things out of the cells during periods of calorie deprivation when nutrients are not readily available. It goes, and this is the hormone that goes into the storage to pull things out so your body can use them, right? So it pulls things out of the liver, your carbohydrates, your liver and muscle glycogen, pulls things out of the fat cells, and hopefully not, but if you're really, starvation state, like your concentration camp or something like that, it can even start pulling stuff from amino acids in your muscles, which you don't want to happen. But what they found is that when the insulin was up, glucagon is suppressed, and it's kind of like, other things where you have, insulin up, human growth hormone down. Basically, you have hormones that are responsible for catabolism or, energy utilization. You have hormones responsible for energy storage and anabolism. And so insulin is one of these ones that's storage and anabolic, and the other, in glucagon, is one of those ones that is, depletion and catabolic. What they also found was that levels of dopamine increased in the high glycemic group, so the more sugary foods and stuff. So you get, and then also addiction to these foods increased as well. And this is not surprising because they found that sugar is actually just as addictive as cocaine is. And so people trying to kick a sugar addiction is like somebody who has a cocaine addiction trying to kick their addiction. Okay, one last point about the sugar addiction, the cocaine addiction, and any form of addiction and why that happens before I get into the last 2 points of the video. So basically what happens when you consume a food that is high in, basically raises your levels of dopamine to a high level, right? So sugar and cocaine, they both cause a steep rise in dopamine, which is the molecule of motivation, right? It causes you to be like, hey, I want to go and seek out more of that thing in the future because that was really good, and so I want to go do more of that, and then it creates that motivation for doing it. But the problem is it creates this steep spike, and then your levels of dopamine decrease below baseline. And so the body wants to keep things in homeostasis, right? And so you start craving more and more of that thing, and you start feeling, and this is why you get the sugar blues and stuff like that as well, is one reason, because those levels of dopamine go really high, and you feel, I feel amazing, and then they go really low, and you just feel, man, I feel, really depressed now. And so it's better to do things that don't cause these steep rises in effects, so you always feel moderate and, on that even keel rather than these super highs and super lows. So at the end of the day, the take-home point, if you got anything out of this, is to do things systematically, do them gradually, focus on whole foods in balance, right? These ones going to have higher nutrient value, so the micronutrients that are contained in the food, the vitamins and minerals. They're also going to have those fiber and the water and all that stuff mixed in appropriate portions to prevent you from having these wild fluctuations in your hormone levels, right? And with that being said, there are also some supplements you can take that can help you to balance your blood sugar and help you to have a more steady rise in that blood sugar as you're coming out of the diet. So one of the things would be turmeric. Cinnamon is also very popular for stabilizing blood sugar, and then chromium picolinate is also one that is helpful for stabilizing blood sugar, and I believe also can help with testosterone levels too, because blood sugar, if your blood sugar is all out of whack, then the rest of your hormones can get out of whack because everything is kind of tied into one another, and that's one of the things that is often, I believe, put into different things to help raise people's testosterone levels. Okay, finally, in wrapping up this video, if you've been doing a diet for fat loss, you've probably been also increasing your cardio in an effort to try to increase calorie expenditure, right? Now, cardio is good. You don't want to get rid of it completely. And in fact, just for general health, you want to be doing about 2 to 3 hours of cardio per week just for general maintenance. And this doesn't have to be super high levels of cardio, but zone 2 cardio. So you can carry on a conversation. So for some people that would be like walking, some people that would be a light jog, and doing that 2 to 3 hours a week, right? So if you have, a couple sessions a week, but maybe if you're doing your fat loss, you're all the way up to 5-6 days a week, maybe even 7 days a week, where you're doing some sort of cardiovascular exercise to try to keep yourself in a calorie deficit to keep that fat loss coming. So you want to gradually taper back off that activity level, and then maybe start incorporating things that like high intensity interval training, because as you are also increasing your calorie levels, you're also bringing more calories in, you have more calories to expend for this high intensity kind of activity, right? And as I've talked about in some other videos, where you have this energy flux concept, right? Where people were able to actually improve their body composition even as they were increasing calories by increasing the level of their workouts, increasing the intensity of the workouts. So if you're increasing the intensity of the workout, as the carbs are increasing, it's more likely that those carbs are going to be used for energy and increase your metabolism at the same time, which was also another added benefit of this energy flux study that they did. So you're helping to boost the metabolism. You're also making sure that those energy substrates are being used for the intended purpose, and you are also gaining the benefits of increased testosterone, human growth hormone, and IGF-1, which can all be beneficial for helping you to build muscle and to burn body fat at the same time. So as you are transitioning from maybe doing more steady state cardio, maybe when you started the diet, you're doing more of this high intensity interval training type cardio, sprint training, cycling, stuff like that. And then as you got deeper into the diet, you're doing more steady state cardio. So maybe making a transition where you're transitioning and having a little less steady state cardio, and then supplementing in there in its place, maybe 20 to 30 minutes a week of this higher intensity stuff split into a couple of workouts, right? Because the thing is, it doesn't take a lot of time because you're going all out and then you take a little bit of rest and then all out and take a little bit of rest. And they've actually found that increases in VO2 max, which is an overall predictor of cardiovascular health, was actually no different between somebody who is training at 10 minutes of high intensity interval training versus somebody who's doing 50 minutes of low intensity exercise like walking or running. So you can get the same benefits of your cardiovascular health in 10 minutes of high intensity interval training as you can in that longer state. Now for me personally, I find that the longer, slower stuff is good for the mind. It's good to kind of relax, good to kind of clear things out. Actually, the shock waves of created by that, steady walking and stuff like that, it stimulates the lymphatic system. It also sends shock waves to the brain to stimulate the brain. And that's why many times when you're out there walking, take a walk. So like if you get stuck and you are not, you have that writer's block or something, or you're working through a problem and you got a problem that you just can't seem to wrap your head around, sometimes you go out for a walk and the problem reveals itself to you, or the answer reveals itself to you in the process. So guys, that's all I have to say in this video about how to avoid regaining the fat after your diet. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you'd like to see more videos related to workout design for both muscle building, athletic performance, as well as losing fat, and then the same thing with your diet, muscle building, fat loss, and then also helping you to avoid any injuries that that are pretty common for people to experience in the gym, as well as how to work around those injuries if you do get them. Consider subscribing to the channel by hitting the button in the lower right hand corner of the screen. And we'll see you all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks guys for watching.